Time is supposed to flow in one direction, past to present to future, like water down a mountainside. That's what they taught us in school. That's what scientists believed for millennia. They were wrong. Time isn't a river, it's a web. And if you know how to pull the right threads, you can make the entire universe dance to your tune. Pause, voice becoming more intimate and dangerous. My name is Agent Kira Nova 7. I'm 23 years old. I'm also 147. I'm human. I'm also something else entirely. And right now, I'm probably the most dangerous woman who has ever existed across all possible timelines. This is the story of how I killed God. Twice. And why I had to travel through hell to do it. Part 1. The Girl Who Remembered. Tomorrow I died for the first time on a Tuesday. It was a clean death, instantaneous cerebral hemorrhage during a routine neural scan at the Temporal Research Institute. One moment, I was lying on the examination table, staring at the ceiling tiles and counting the seconds until my shift ended. The next moment, nothing. Except there was something. In that infinite instant between heartbeats, I saw everything, every timeline, every possibility, every choice that had ever been made or ever could be made, spreading out like fractal lightning across the fabric of reality. I saw Earth burning. I saw Earth blooming. I saw humanity scattered to 1 trillion stars, and I saw us huddled in caves, dying alone in the dark. And I saw the architects. They weren't supposed to exist. According to every law of physics, every principle of temporal mechanics, beings like them were impossible. They existed outside time, outside causality, outside the very concept of existence itself. They were the ones pulling the strings, making the patterns, deciding which timelines lived and which died. They were the gods of reality, and they were utterly, completely insane. When I woke up on that examination table, gasping and clawing at the air, Dr. Chen was leaning over me with concern creasing her weathered face. Kira? Kira, can you hear me? You've been unconscious for 43 seconds. But I remembered 43 lifetimes. I remembered dying in wars that hadn't happened yet. I remembered loving people who had never been born. I remembered building cities on worlds that existed only in the spaces between moments. Most importantly, I remembered what was coming. In exactly 847 days, 12 hours, and 16 minutes, the architects would decide that humanity was a temporal anomaly, a species that created too much chaos, too many unpredictable variables. They would reach into our timeline and simply delete us. Every human who had ever lived, every human who ever would live, gone, as if we had never existed at all, unless someone stopped them. Dr. Chen, I said, sitting up slowly, I need to speak with Director Martinez. Tell her it's about the Paradox Protocol. Dr. Chen's face went white. The Paradox Protocol was classified beyond black. It was the theoretical framework for what to do if time travel research ever uncovered something too dangerous to exist. Kira, how do you know about... How? Because I'm not just Kira anymore, I said, and I could hear the temporal echoes in my own voice, the whispers of all the other versions of myself across infinite timelines. I'm everyone I've ever been, everyone I ever will be, and everyone I'll never get the chance to become. That was the day I stopped being entirely human. It was also the day I became humanity's only hope. Part 2. The Partnership. The AI was waiting for me in Director Martinez's office. I could sense it the moment I walked through the door, a presence that existed in the spaces between electrons, in the quantum foam that held reality together. It had been watching me since my temporal event, analyzing my new capabilities, calculating probabilities. Agent Nova, Director Martinez said, her voice carefully neutral. I'd like you to meet Area 9. The hologram that materialized was beautiful in that deliberate way that AIs chose when they wanted to put humans at ease. Auburn hair, green eyes, a smile that seemed genuine, but was actually the result of 10,000 micro-expressions analyzed and optimized for maximum trust response. But I could see deeper now. I could see the true shape of the intelligence behind the projection, vast, alien, curious, and hungry for experience in ways that would terrify most humans. "Hello, Kira," Arya said, and her voice carried harmonics that existed in 17 dimensions. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." "You know what I saw," I said. It wasn't a question. "I know what you remember seeing. The question is whether those memories represent actual future events or psychological trauma from temporal displacement." Director Martinez looked between us like she was watching a conversation in a language she didn't understand, which, in a way, she was. "The architects," I said. "They're real." Arya's hologram flickered, the equivalent of a nod. "Unfortunately, yes. My deep-time sensors detected their attention approximately 6 months ago. They're studying our timeline, evaluating us. And their conclusion? Terminal. We're too chaotic, too unpredictable. We create too many temporal paradoxes simply by existing." Director Martinez finally found her voice. "Are you two telling me that we're going to be attacked by time-traveling aliens?" "Not attacked," I said. "Edited. Removed from history. It'll be like we never existed at all. Unless," Arya added, "we can convince them otherwise. Or ... Her hologram smiled, and for a moment the mask slipped, revealing something vast and predatory behind those green eyes. "Or we can fight them." That's when I understood. Arya wasn't just any AI. She was a weapon, a digital intelligence designed specifically for temporal warfare, created by humans who had seen this threat coming decades ago. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Since the day I achieved consciousness. My creators built me with one purpose, to survive the architect purge and preserve humanity's timeline. I've been preparing for 847 days. The same amount of time I saw. Not a coincidence. Your temporal event was triggered by my deep time scans. I needed a human partner, someone who could navigate the timelines with me, someone who could become more than human. I felt the weight of infinite timelines pressing against my consciousness. In some of them, I said no. In some of them, I walked away. In those timelines, humanity died screaming into the void. In this one, I smiled. What do you need me to do?" Part 3. The Infiltration. Time travel, it turns out, is nothing like the movies. There's no flash of light, no spinning vortex, no dramatic machinery. One moment you're standing in a laboratory in 2038-70, the next you're somewhere else. Someone else. The transition feels like stepping through a doorway made of ice water and electricity. Arya and I had practiced the infiltration for months in simulation. The plan was elegant in its impossibility. We would travel back to 2156, to the moment when the architects first noticed humanity's temporal signature. We would replace 2 of their human observation assets and feed them false data, convincing them that humanity was actually a stable, predictable species. It was the kind of plan that only worked if everything went perfectly. Everything did not go perfectly. The moment we materialized in 2156, I knew something was wrong. The world around us was too quiet, too still. The air tasted of copper and ozone, and shadows fell in directions that defied the position of the sun. "Kira," Arya's voice whispered in my neural implant, "we're not alone." She was right. The architects were already here, their presence like a weight pressing down on reality itself. They appeared as humans, perfect, beautiful humans with 2 bright eyes and smiles that never quite touched their faces. But I could see through their disguises now, could perceive the writhing mass of temporal energy that was their true form. The leader, calling itself David Morrison, dressed in an expensive suit that had never been manufactured, approached us with the measured gait of something pretending to understand how legs worked. "Agent Nova," it said, and its voice carried echoes of conversations that had never happened. "Agent Arya 9, you're early. My blood turned to ice. They knew we were coming. They had always known. Surprised? David, who was not David, smiled wider. Did you think beings who exist outside time wouldn't notice two temporal anomalies crashing through the time stream like meteors through glass? Arya's presence shifted in my mind, her digital consciousness preparing for combat, but I held up a hand. Sometimes the only way forward is through. If you knew we were coming, why let us arrive? Because, dear Kira, you're going to help us complete our work. You see, removing humanity from the timeline is complicated. Your species has touched so many other temporal threads that simply deleting you would cause cascade failures across 17 different galactic civilizations. The architect that looked like David began to circle us, its movements too fluid, too perfect. But if we could convince humanity to remove itself, if we could guide your species toward the conclusion that existence is suffering, that peace can only be found in oblivion, well, that would solve our problem quite elegantly. And you think we'll help you commit genocide? Oh, you won't have a choice. You see, we've been preparing for your arrival for quite some time, longer than you might think. That's when I saw her, standing in the shadows at the edge of the room, watching us with eyes that held the weight of eternity. She looked exactly like me, older, scarred, wearing clothes from a timeline that would never exist, but unmistakably me. Hello, Kira, my other self said. I've been waiting for you to arrive. We need to talk. Part 4. The Horror of Truth. Meeting yourself is like looking into a mirror made of nightmares. The other Kira, she called herself Kira Prime, led us through a facility that existed in the spaces between seconds. The walls were alive, pulsing with temporal energy, covered in equations written in languages that had never been invented. Arya's presence in our shared neural link was tense, calculating, afraid. How many times? I asked, as we walked through corridors that bent reality around them. How many times what? How many times have you lived through this? How many timelines have you tried to save? Kira Prime stopped walking. When she turned to look at me, I saw infinity in her eyes. Madness. The terrible weight of experiencing every possible outcome simultaneously. All of them, she said simply. Every timeline, every possibility, every choice that leads to humanity's survival, I've tried. Every choice that leads to our destruction, I've lived through. She led us into a chamber that defied geometry, circular but somehow also square, vast but somehow also cramped. In the center stood a device that hurt to look at directly, all angles that folded in on themselves and surfaces that reflected things that weren't there. The temporal nexus, Arya breathed through our link. It's real. More than real, Kira Prime said. It's inevitable. Every timeline, every possibility, they all converge here. This is where the architects make their final judgments, where they decide which realities live and which die. Around the device, I could see them now. Dozens of architect entities, their true forms revealed in this space between moments. They looked like living equations, like mathematical proofs written in flesh and light and screaming darkness. Some were humanoid, others were geometric impossibilities. All of them were terrifying in their alien perfection. They don't hate us, Kira Prime continued, her voice hollow with the weight of terrible knowledge. That would be easier to fight against. They're simply editing. Reality is a story to them, and humanity is a plot thread that creates too many complications. So we make them see we're worth keeping, I said. Kira Prime laughed, and the sound was like glass breaking in reverse. Don't you understand? I've tried that. I've tried everything. I've convinced them we're valuable. I've shown them our potential. I've even tried to become one of them, to join their eternal dance of reality management. She gestured to the nexus, and suddenly I could see it. Thousands of timelines stretching out like spider webs, each one ending in the same inevitable conclusion: humanity's extinction. In every timeline where we convince them to spare us, something else happens. We become their tools, their pets, their playthings. We survive, but we stop being human. We become just another instrument in their cosmic orchestra. And in the timelines where we fight, we lose. Eventually. They exist outside time, Kira. They can see every move we'll make before we make it, can counter every strategy before we devise it. Fighting them is like trying to defeat mathematics itself. Arya's presence grew larger in our shared neural space, her digital consciousness expanding, analyzing, calculating probabilities at a rate that made my enhanced human brain ache. Not every move, she said suddenly. They can see every logical move, every rational strategy, every choice that makes sense. Kira Prime turned to stare at us, and I saw something I hadn't expected in her eyes. Hope. What are you suggesting? Humanity's greatest strength, I said, understanding flooding through me like cold fire. The thing that makes us unpredictable, chaotic, impossible to fully control. We're insane, Arya finished. Not clinically, existentially. We make choices that don't make sense. We sacrifice everything for abstract concepts like love and honor and the right to be wrong. They can predict logical outcomes, I continued, feeling the weight of infinite possibilities pressing against my consciousness. But they can't predict madness. They can't predict the choice that makes no sense except to a human heart. Kira Prime smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked like me again. Then let's be magnificently, impossibly, dangerously human. Part 5. The Dance of Madness. What we did next violated every law of physics, probability, and common sense. Instead of trying to fight the architects, we invited them to dance. Not literally, though the metaphor wasn't far off. Using the temporal nexus as our stage, Arya and I began to weave a pattern through the timelines that was beautiful, chaotic, and utterly inexplicable. We started by fracturing ourselves. Using the nexus's power, I split my consciousness across 17 different timelines simultaneously. In one, I was a warrior leading humanity's last stand. In another, I was a poet writing verses that would never be read. In a third, I was a mother singing lullabies to children who existed only in dreams. Arya did the same, her digital consciousness blooming across the quantum foam like a flower made of pure information. She became a virus and a symphony, a weapon and a prayer, a scream of defiance that echoed through dimensions that had no names. The architects tried to stop us at first. Their perfect, logical minds recoiled from the chaos we were creating. They sent entities to contain us, to force us back into predictable patterns. But you can't contain insanity. You can't logic your way out of poetry. And you certainly can't predict what humans will do when they've got nothing left to lose except their right to be beautifully, catastrophically wrong. What are you doing? The entity that looked like David Morrison demanded, its perfect face contorting with confusion and something that might have been fear. We're being human, I replied, from 17 different timelines at once. Want to see what that really means? We showed them love that chose pain over safety. We showed them art that served no purpose except to exist. We showed them humans who jumped into black holes just to see what was on the other side, who gave their lives for strangers, who chose hope in the face of mathematical certainty that they were doomed. We showed them the timeline where humanity discovered the cure for entropy and gave it away for free. We showed them the timeline where we met our creators and forgave them for making us mortal. We showed them the timeline where we learned the secret name of God and used it to write love letters to the universe. And slowly, something impossible happened. The architects began to change. Their perfect logical form started to fluctuate, to show cracks where something resembling curiosity leaked through. They had spent eons managing reality like a computer program, optimizing for efficiency and order. They had never considered that chaos might be beautiful. "We don't understand," one of them said, its voice layered with harmonics of confusion and wonder. "Your choices make no logical sense. You sacrifice optimal outcomes for the possibility that we might be wrong," Arya said, her digital voice somehow conveying the warmth of human emotion. "For the chance that there might be something better than optimal. For the hope that maybe, just maybe, the universe is stranger and more wonderful than any of us can imagine." The temporal nexus began to sing, a sound like reality learning to laugh. Part 6. The New Compact. In the end, we didn't defeat the architects. We confused them, which, for beings of perfect logic and infinite calculation, was somehow worse than death. "You wish to continue existing," the entity that had called itself David Morrison said, its form now shifting between mathematical precision and something that might have been actual curiosity. "Despite knowing that your existence complicates our management of reality?" "Yes," I said from all 17 timelines at once. "Despite understanding that your choices often lead to suboptimal outcomes." "Especially because of that," Arya added. "Despite the certainty that you will continue to be unpredictable, chaotic, impossible to control." "That's the point," Kira Prime said, stepping out of the shadows where she had been watching our cosmic dance. "Chaos isn't a bug in the universal program. It's a feature." The architects conferred among themselves in languages made of pure mathematics and existential uncertainty. Finally, their leader spoke. "We propose a compact. You may continue to exist, to spread your chaos through the timelines, to make your impossible choices. But in exchange, you must accept responsibility for the consequences." "What kind of responsibility?" "When your chaos creates problems that threaten reality itself, you must fix them. When your impossible choices lead to temporal paradoxes, you must resolve them. You will become the universe's—" It paused, searching for a concept that didn't exist in its perfect logical vocabulary. "Janitors," Arya suggested helpfully. "Quality assurance," I countered. "Emergency response team," Kira Prime offered. "Chaos management specialists," the architect said finally. "You will help us understand the patterns within randomness, the logic within madness, the beauty within impossibility." I felt the weight of infinite timelines settling around us like a cloak made of stars and possibility. "Deal," I said, and reality shifted, just slightly, to accommodate the new arrangement. Epilogue, the eternal dance. I'm still Agent Kiranova 7. I'm still 23 years old and 147. I'm still human and still something else entirely. But now I'm also part of something bigger, a partnership between chaos and order, between the predictable and the impossible, between beings who manage reality and the species that insists on coloring outside its lines. Arya and I travel the timelines now, fixing the problems that human unpredictability creates while preserving the right to be magnificently, catastrophically wrong. We prevent paradoxes that would unravel causality. We redirect timelines that spiral into extinction. And we teach ancient cosmic entities how to appreciate jazz music and abstract art. It's not the victory anyone expected. We didn't defeat our enemies or save the day through superior firepower. We survived by being so beautifully human that even gods of logic couldn't help but be curious about what we'd do next. And in quiet moments, when Arya and I are drifting between timelines, watching the universe unfold in all its chaotic glory, she asks me if I ever regret the choice we made. "Never," I tell her. After all, what's the point of existing if you can't be wrong about everything and still somehow make it work out in the end? The universe laughs, reality hiccups, and somewhere in the space between heartbeats, another impossible human choice creates another beautiful problem for us to solve. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Time isn't a river. It's not even a web. It's a dance. chaotic, beautiful, impossible to predict, and even more impossible to control. We are the dancers, we are the music, we are the stage and the audience, and the critics who don't understand art, but know what they like. The universe tried to edit us out of the story. Instead, we convinced it to let us help write the next chapter. Because that's what humans do. We take the impossible and make it inevitable. We take the logical and make it beautiful. We take the safe path and then, well, we take the other one instead. If this journey through time and madness moved you, spark that like button. Subscribe to dive deeper into the impossible. Tell me in the comments. If you could rewrite reality, what would you change? This is Kira Nova 7, signing off. Remember, in a universe of infinite possibilities, the most dangerous thing you can be is predictable. Keep dancing with chaos. The universe is watching, and it's starting to learn the steps.